What's up, everybody? Jason Swenk here. I am excited. I have another amazing guest on the show. We're going to talk about landing big, well known brands because a lot of you have been reaching out. How do we get these big brands like Coca Cola, Pepsi, and all these major brands? Well, on today's episode, we're going to talk about that with this amazing guest. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hey, Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jason.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on. So, for the ones that have not heard of you yet, tell us who you are and what do you do?
All right, I am Bill Durant, and I'm the president and founder of Xveris Media. We're based out in Los Angeles, and we are a paid media agency focused in that space, really designed to create culture creating growth stage brands, to work with those brands, to build them, to grow them from a media standpoint. And not just their brands, but also immediate demand as well. So the performance side of the world as well.
Awesome. Well, tell us how did you get into this space? I'm always curious, and like, what was your first project or deal?
Yeah, I think our origin story is a little, it's a little funny. It shows you how important it is to be lucky and good, not just good. I had worked for a number of years at a big agency and worked on the Nestle account. So I worked with a number of brands from Nestle, and I had decided to leave to start doing some freelance work. And while I was doing that, I got a phone call from a former Nestle client who said, "Hey, I'm running part of the marketing organization at Clif Bar now, and would love to know if you might be able to be a one-person media agency for us." And of course, I had no idea how to do that, but found myself saying yes, and that turned into an incredible and a very long run with Cliff Bar, which started the agency. So from very small projects to consolidating all of their media and advertising across the organization and using that as the launch pad for what we are today.
Well, shit, dude, you went straight to the a huge brand. Yes, that was good timing, and I don't know luck, but I think that was just good timing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like I said, it shows you kind of it's important to be good. It's important to be ready when opportunities come up. But it's also important, at that point in time, Cliff Bar was not investing very much money into paid media. So it wasn't a stretch for me to do the work and to bring on one or two team members. The real stretch was, I think, in people's imaginations when they understood, like, wait, Cliff Bar, I mean, that they've got to be $1 billion brand, and taking advantage of essentially the credibility that that gave us. I didn't have to tell anyone, hey, they're not necessarily spending $10 million a year in media. They're not a massive account, at least right now. And being able to do that and to leverage that credibility is ultimately what started to land us our next relationships.
Yeah, and I think really kind of talk a little bit about because a lot of times people think these big brands are so intimidating. Like they get so nervous. And I'm like, they're just people like you and me. Just got, but they got to get 1,000 different approvals. Oh, and they make decisions on committees, and all that kind of stuff. But like, talk a little bit about that. Like, I remember when we landed our first big one, I was just naive, and I didn't even know they were big. Like, I remember, and I even lost a really big account because I didn't even know who they were, which I always tell on the show, Berkshire Hathaway. I was like, "Who are you guys?"
Yeah, it's I mean, I can't believe you told Warren Buffett to screw off, but that's definitely a story. I think you're absolutely right. These are people who put their pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us. And particularly if you're a creative agency or an agency where everything isn't continuously trying to be consolidated like it is on the media side, there's a lot of opportunity for them to really want to stand out and break through just within their organization, let alone to consumers. So there are folks that are going to be more willing within those organizations to work with an agency of any size if it brings them, the right kind of breakthrough work. And what we also found is that within those organizations, these large organizations, there's a Coca-Cola, and sure, everybody would want to work with Coca-Cola or with Sprite or even with Minute Maid or some of the larger brands. But from our standpoint, working with Coca-Cola doesn't necessarily mean working with those massive brands and trying to take on the largest agencies in the world. There are folks that are brand managers on really interesting growth stage brands that really need our help in creative thinking, and there's huge opportunities to not only do great work with brands like that, and then have the benefit of saying, I get to work with a Fortune 100 company, but to actually get work out of that then becomes part of your calling card to future opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I did an interview, our fourth interview. So if you guys want to go check it out, it's jasonswank.com/4, the number four. It's pretty long URL. And I interviewed Del Ross of IHG, International Hotel Group. And at the time, he was director of marketing. He's not there, so don't hit Dell up anymore. Um, and I asked him, I said, how can smaller agencies that haven't worked with bigger brands get into bed with bigger brands? And he was like, look, just like what you said, be innovative, call me up and tell me something that is new, that's changing. Don't just say, hey, I'll take you out to golf or send me a stupid, puzzle that I have to solve in order to, get his attention. He's like, look, just say, hey, I was what like, and this was his example when Facebook was coming out with his pay per click and saying, hey, have you heard of Power Editor and the remarketing possibility that you can do in the hospitality space? I'd love to do a test project for you. And that's what we did with Lotus Cars, and that's what we did with Hitachi Power Tools and a number of different bigger brands. And once you got in there, I want you to tell us about this too, about especially with Clif, the Clif Bar. There's so many different side businesses or divisions in those. So how did you start building relationships in order to grow that account?
Well, I think the point that you just made is a really important one, and I think your success is a testament to this strategy and the strategic approach, because it really is a win-win for everyone. And when you can show that client how they're winning by doing something or learning something that they wouldn't have experienced or been exposed to before, your business is going to grow, right? And I think with Cliff Bar, we were kind of, it's funny, I came from Nestle where, there's typically one agency group that runs all Nestle brands, regardless of where they are in the country. And so portfolio management was very important. And so we came into the Cliff Bar relationship really saying, this is going to be about portfolio management, even if there's one or two brands that spend the most. And this is going to be about building relationships with as many people within the organization as possible. Now, an organization like Cliff makes that really easy. It's just great people all the way through. And what we found was that not only were we, picking up and working with additional brands within Cliff, which ultimately I think helped the bottom line. Um, what we also found was that those folks would then progress in their careers and move outside of the walls of Cliff and move to other organizations. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. And we've kind of evolved our relationship. We now work with Premier Protein, and Power Bar and Supreme Protein, which is literally down the street. But as people progressed in their careers and moved to other organizations, we then had new startup brands and new opportunities to work with. So it raised the tide of the boat, and it helped us diversify as well, away from one kind of main client comprising the bulk of our revenue. And so we saw that strategy paying off, not just right away. Hey, could you introduce me to such and such at such and such brand? Would love to chat with them. You're already an insider, so you've already got trust and a reason to be there. So you're not just a cold call when you're asking for introductions to the other brand managers. But even when you're not necessarily getting work from them today, you may be getting work from them tomorrow, and it's still important to continue to build those relationships.
Yeah, one of our mastermind members does a lot of work with Facebook, and some of the key people left Facebook. She was telling us this, and some of the other members were like, "Oh, that means you're going to lose Facebook." She's like, "No, no, no," and I knew it was coming. I was like, I'm getting new business from all these other companies. And it was like, you build relationships with these people, they take you everywhere. And we saw that as well. But it's about building that relationship, not just being transactional. And I think so many, like one of our other mastermind members, we always have a digital agency experience in Colorado. And I remember I'm already talking about, we always make it one of the things in the first month we have to go physically, this is pre-COVID, go visit them and just build rapport and help them out. And always, rather than just sending stupid reports, like why do agencies just send reports? Like, what happens to your report? It just, they look at the first month, they might ask a question, and then all the other ones, it goes in the garbage. And then they forget
That's,
about
oh
you.
my goodness, that's exactly right. And you're right to talk about how to differentiate yourself, and creating that personal communication is really one of the top ways to do it. We still have a very limited client base here in Los Angeles. We've still only had one or two clients over the last 6 years that we could actually drive to, and we made it a point to fly and to be in person with people. So I've had status with Southwest Airlines for 10 years
Oh, sucks. That sucks.
because of that, because it's so easy to fly from Burbank to Oakland, and to be there in person and to continue to cultivate those relationships, and to do that with people that I genuinely like and genuinely consider friends now.
You know, what in switching focus just a little bit, because you have about 30 people that you were telling me in the pre-show. Your people will leave sometimes. They build relationships with your clients. I know one of the hard things that people have in agency, let's say you have a project manager, account manager leading like a major account, and that person decides to leave. How do you maintain that relationship going forward with that client as that key person left?
That's a great question. I think what we do is we try to make it like a three-tiered approach. So you've got folks that are at a senior leadership level. We've got 30 people, and maybe four or five people kind of fit that fit that descriptor, and that's even a growth from where we were just 6 months ago. So we've got a senior leadership level. We've got an associate director, manager, kind of media planner, core team, and then you've got your kind of junior planners and associate planners, and that's kind of how our structure works from a client relationship standpoint. We're, I think, continuously thinking about where's the relationship at all three levels, so that if a person who's a core, especially this day where there's been so much turnover, just in general across the industry, there's still going to be someone at the other two levels with whom the client has a strong relationship. And then we know that mission one, once we get a new person in to replace who's left, is for them to build that relationship with the clients. That's just as important as it is for them to build a relationship with the folks internally as well. We take that very seriously. So the first thing we do is we look at what are these three levels? How can we always have two strong points of contact at different levels, regardless of who's left? Because you'll find that sometimes clients just really love a particular associate planner or someone who's at a more entry level role, because that's the person that's getting them the information that they're asking for on a daily basis and doing a great job, and not just showing up every week or every month for other things. The other thing that we like to do from a relationship standpoint is, again, to prioritize those relationships and to understand that this really is a relationship business, first and foremost, and a results business is a very close second. Um, we always have to be mindful of results and the innovation that we're bringing to clients, but we know that we won't have a business long term if we're not cultivating relationships and keeping those strong. So it's very important to us as an organization to hire properly. We're not just going to hire someone who's got the particular skill set that our client is looking for. We're also going to hire someone that we think that they're going to blend well with and to work well with and to enjoy on a personal level, and somebody who's articulate enough to maintain that level of relationship with them and not just a technical expert. So that's the other big piece that's so important and foundational to everything, is that if you're hiring correctly, you're really setting yourself up to be successful in that without even necessarily having to have a strategic approach after that.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a people relationship business, both hiring, like you were saying, and managing those relationships. I love that, and I love the 3 points of contact and always having 2 points. It's kind of like climbing a mountain. You never want just one point of contact. I mean, I watched that free solo, and my hands still, you know, clam up when I'm thinking of him just holding on with one hand. I'm like, at least 2 points, and you're gonna make it. Well, depending on which mountain you choose, I guess.
That's the perfect analogy. I'm going to steal that analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we love mountains here, right? So that's why I live in the mountains. Well, this has all been amazing. Tell us a little bit about the book called Digital Stone Age.
Yeah, so Digital Stone Age was a book that was designed to essentially have a conversation um, at more of the reader's pace that we found ourselves increasingly having with brands over the last couple of years. And that conversation was really around this idea of, I'm a growing brand. I may have a decent media budget. I may not. I may, be kind of bootstrapping with a smaller budget, at least compared to my peer set. And as a result, everything that I do has to be digital. And we found a lot of brand managers coming in with this mindset, or everything that I do has to be social. And, they weren't necessarily wrong in wanting to be in those places and to utilize those tactics. But what we found is that they weren't being neutral about it, and they weren't truly understanding what is going to truly grow my brand based on where consumers are now. And, essentially, the thesis of the book is you have to take care of generating that immediate demand, but you also have to take care of building a brand simultaneously. And as important and critical as digital tactics have been, tactics that were kind of native to the digital space, what we also found was that people are still watching TV. People are still viewing now post COVID, hopefully. I don't know if post COVID is even makes sense, but people are still viewing out of home advertising. So we're seeing that grow again in 2021 and then beyond. People are still utilizing tactics that might feel old fashioned to a very modern digital marketer, and they're using them very successfully. Simultaneously, you've got folks who are doing the same thing of, I've always been in TV, I've always been on radio, I've always been in outdoor, and I would like to just continue with what's worked. And we know that that's not what works best either. There truly is a synergistic effect by taking different kinds of media channels and different approaches and using them simultaneously than trying to double down on one particular approach or tactic.
Mhm.
So, writing a book about that and essentially laying out the evidence that proves that over studies that have been done by people far more intelligent than I, over thousands of brands and over the last 10 years. It's really powerful and exciting to see that and to know, hey, I now have a blueprint or a path forward and a strategic framework on how to be successful in growing a brand in this modern era, where even if a particular channel isn't a digital channel, it's still becoming more and more digitized.
Yeah.
And being able to lean into those trends and be modern, but also simultaneously driving results with your budgets, that's a very powerful thing to be able to say you can do as a marketer.
Well, I lied. Last question. Has the book got you a lot of business with some of the brands that you want?
You know, I think what it does is two things. Number one is it immediately drives credibility that we know what we're talking about.
Mhm.
So we don't use it as a lead magnet per se. We use it as a complement to our introduction process and our proposal process with clients. And so it's a little bit harder to quantify, but we know that the book and some of the work that we've done as extensions of that from a PR standpoint, just getting our message out to the press, have generated interest and inbound leads and have generated clients for us. And that's, I think, the most satisfying thing to know is that we were able to obtain a client by doing things the right way and leaning in on thought leadership and not just having to rely on referrals, of course, which are important, but you can't just rely on them, or other channels or tactics that
Yeah.
might have felt less true to who we are.
Well, we have a lot of mastermind members that have written books, and what they'll do is they'll literally send it out to their top 100 list, and they'll actually have like a
Mm.
bookmark and a special note on the page they want them to read, and it's customized to them, right? And then they get this book. If they like reading, then it's golden. If they're like me and they're like, kryptonite, throw it away, right? So you just got to make sure you know your audience. But yeah, some mastermind members crush it on that. So if you're not doing it, try that part out.
I love that idea. The idea of shipping out 100 packages is a little scary, but the idea of physically getting something into their hands is so powerful. Love it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. What's the website for the agency? And then obviously, the digital Stone Age. I think you can get on Amazon and Barnes and Noble all over. So congrats on that. But what's the website address? People can go and check the agency out.
Yep, xverus.com. It's just EXVERUS, means from the truth in Latin.
Awesome. Glad you spelled that out because I bet a lot of people would have messed that up. But thanks so much for coming on the show. Loved having you. And if you guys like this episode, make sure you guys subscribe, however you're listening to it. And if you want to be around other amazing agency owners that can really elevate you faster, and these are experienced agency owners that are pushing you and they're growing at a rapid pace, I'd love to have you guys go to digitalagencyelite.com and go apply. We make everyone go through an application process, interview process, just to make sure it can help you out and that you're right for the group. But these are the best of the best agency owners sharing what's working and be able to see the things that you might not be able to see. So go do that now. And until next time, have a swank day.